Hello, in this video I'm going to talk a bit about this log house 3D printed model that I've painted and embellished twice. The model is by Kijai and it is a paid model which is available on Cults, and I have linked to the model's STL in the description below. I've also linked to my blog as well as additional videos that discuss any techniques or materials that I've used in my embellishing and painting. So, onward with the very brief yet probably somewhat long-winded description. And I'll start with this green one here because it's the more complete model. I have two of these because we have two printers and my husband was in the process of calibrating them when I asked him to print this, so he just made me two so he could see the difference between the printers. Now, our better printer actually butchered the model and our crappy printer printed it better, and it gave the log some additional wonderful texture. So, yeah, neither model came out perfect. And that's not down to the STL, it's down to a combination of our printers as well as the fact that we scaled down the model quite a bit. I think in full size it's more like maybe another couple inches long. And it didn't entirely like being scaled down, but I have to be honest, I'm really happy with it. I think it came out really, really well despite that. So, now on to the painting rather, and embellishing. Both of these models printed completely supportless. That's even these little mushrooms, all supportless. So the first thing I needed to do was tidy up a few just stray bits of plastic that came out. The next thing I did was I primed them both. I primed them with brushed on acrylic paint. That's what I do with all of my models. You can spray prime if you like. I prefer brush. It's just my method that I'm comfortable with. So, I let them dry for a day after they were primed, and then it was time to block in the colors. So for this, I blocked in green under the grass. I blocked in brown for the log, obviously. Little mushrooms, I just painted orange to start. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with them. The stones were brown, grey, and the stones around the edge were grey, and the door frame as well. For this snowy one, I did the exact same things, but with white for the ground. The stones started out grey, they didn't stay that way. The door frame is a different color, and the log is obviously brown. And the mushroom, there's only 2 mushrooms on the ground here. I made them gold because I was feeling festive. It was like, what, November maybe? October? It was November. So, yeah. After that was all dry, it was time to add in the shadows. And that was a black wash basically all over to get into all the crevices on the logs, and to get into the crevices on the stones around the perimeters. After that was dry, it was time to add highlights and details. The highlights on this model here, on the stones around the perimeter, it was just a lighter grey. On the log, it was a tan color. And I highlighted a bit of tan on the mushrooms as well, because they were bright orange and didn't look right. For the details, the little lanterns came out gold, with a bit of black, I guess, in the glass. Around the door frame, that was highlighted just with a bit of grey. The little window here was gold. And the ladders I highlighted in gold. I think underneath the gold was just tan for the rope. It's kind of a rope ladder that's there. So yeah, same treatment here. The log actually has a bit of a raw sienna highlight to it because I was doing them slightly differently. I highlighted the perimeter stones here in gold. My little mushrooms I detailed in gold and copper. The rope ladder treated the same way. The little lanterns here are copper colored, and that's pretty much it for the painting, really. I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do with these. They did both get, oh sorry, they did get a bit chewed up by the printer, and I wasn't entirely sure I could save them, but I definitely did. I'm really happy with them. So yeah, after the painting was done, it was really just down to embellishing. And starting with this, I embellished it with static grass, which was just applied with PVA glue. And I added some more static grass to the top of the log because I thought that looked quite natural. It's been sitting out in the woods for a while. Why wouldn't it be growing little bits of grass in all of its rotting crevices? And that is really all of the embellishing I did on this. And once I was finished with that, I thought it needed a little something else. So I actually applied glow-in-the-dark paint to all the mushrooms and the little stepping stones. There's a lot of glow-in-the-dark paint there and on the lanterns. So not that it's a huge deal, but when the lights go out, the little mushroom details all glow, and it's quite cool looking. And that's pretty much it for this model. For this model, I had gotten in some snow, which is basically, I think it's like 0.5 millimeter fluff. And I wanted to try it out, so I thought, what a perfect opportunity, especially since my printer ate just about all the mushrooms. So yeah, I applied that with some PVA, and it's kind of getting bleached out in the light here, but it looks quite cool in person. I don't know. There we go. And you can see I've glued in these things here. It looks like quartz stones, but it's actually, I think they're just bits of glass. I got them from my model embellishment supplier. It just looked cool, something I wanted to try, and it worked really well with the snowy landscape. It looks like hunks of ice kind of strewn about. I also added in some clump foliage bushes because I have no mushrooms here, so I decided I would fill it in with something. And so yeah, it's just these glass bits, the snow, and the clump foliage. And then once that was dry, I went back in with the snow and the PVA, and I brushed a tiny bit onto the top because of course it would accumulate there. It's accumulated in the chimney a bit. There's some snow drifts in the door jamb, on the lanterns, on top of the bushes, and on top of the little mushrooms. So I just thought those would be some cool details to add, and it really helped to save the model that my printer chewed up a fair bit. So it looks really cool. I'm extremely happy with it. One last thing I want to mention is you can see on both of my models there's a little hole in the top of the door. This has been fixed on the STL. It was just a thin spot in the model. I'd actually test printed these for Kijai after some changes were made, and he fixed that. But again, the reason why it appears is in part due to the fact that I scaled them down so much. If they were printed full size, even with that thin part in the STL, it would have printed a full door. So I was going to repair them, but I actually ended up liking it because the way it came out, it just looks like the wood's just a bit rough like the rest of it. I mean, it's a log. It's like scrap wood that was made to build this little fairy house. And again, this is the models telling a story in my imagination, so hooray! So yeah, models are great. Love the way they came out. Would highly recommend this file. And that's all for now, so bye!